Joe Moreno, the former federal prosecutor, is with us. Good to see you, Joe, as ever. Let's just dive into some of that Gary was talking about, some of the examples that were set out by the justices. So Judge Pan asked his attorney, John Sauer, this afternoon, whether a president could sell military secrets to the enemy. Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? And the answer that came back was, well, he would have to be speedily impeached and convicted. But he didn't seem to have, the lawyer, an effective response to whether he could be criminally convicted without that impeachment. What's your view on that?
Well, Christian, I'm certainly not Donald Trump's lawyer, but if I were, I would point out that the Supreme Court has held in civil cases that presidents have absolute immunity from being sued, but only for official acts. So basically carrying out their powers of the presidency. I would make the same argument here. It may or may not work, but I would say, okay, ordering assassinations, taking bribes, things like that, those are personal actions. And no one is saying you should be immune from prosecution for those. If I were Donald Trump's lawyers, I would say, look, I felt in good faith that I was protecting the presidency, that I was correcting a wrong, and therefore I was acting in my official capacity, and therefore I should be immune from both civil and criminal prosecution. I'm not saying it'll work. In fact, I think it won't work. But that's the argument that I would respond to with respect to those allegations that were made today in court.
Yeah, I mean, the special counsel's office said it would be awfully scary if it couldn't prosecute cases like Trump's, if there was no criminal mechanism to stop future presidents from usurping the vote and remaining in power. And let's face it, were it not for the advice of White House counsel, Donald Trump might very well have done that.
You know, I can totally see how an international audience can sort of scratch their heads and say, how could America not possibly not have worked out these issues in the last 200 years? And my response would be, we've never had a Donald Trump in 200 years. And like your correspondent said, no president or former president has ever been charged with a crime. So it's certainly something that we now have to grapple with. We have to get to the bottom of this. And look, I would say, like most legal things, you go to the original text, in this case, the text of the Constitution. The Constitution permits for a president to be impeached and removed. And then it says, and then subject to indictment, trial, and prosecution. Now, I would say that clearly contemplates that a president out of office can be prosecuted for crimes committed while in office. And I don't think it requires impeachment to come first, like sequentially. So I think that's the beginning and the end. I think Donald Trump will lose in circuit court, probably unanimously. And if this goes to the Supreme Court, as I think it will, most likely he loses there as well.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the impeachment, Joe, just one final point on this. If you recall, when Mitch McConnell, the most senior Republican in the Senate, was asked why he didn't vote in favour of impeachment in the second impeachment, he said, because we have a criminal justice system in this country, we have civil litigation, and former presidents are not immune from being held accountable by either one. So in his view, this argument that a president can only be impeached and then criminally charged doesn't hold any weight.
He may or may not be eating his words now. He might not have realized how prescient those words were when he said them. But I think that's the common thought here by anyone reading the plain text of the Constitution and looking at how our system works. And the idea that, yes, broad immunity from criminal prosecution just doesn't make sense. And so I think that, again, this is a very, very uphill battle for Donald Trump.
Just a very quick one on the ruling itself. How quickly will it come? And there is this issue of whether, if it does go to the Supreme Court, whether the court case in the lower court, in the trial court, can continue while that appeal is pending. How do you see that?
Okay, I think the immediate appeal comes quickly, within a few weeks. The Supreme Court, no one knows how long they will take to take the case. And it could be a while before they do, and before they hear arguments and issue a decision. As far as the trial court, that should cease right now. It should stop in its tracks while these appeals make their way through the courts.
Joe Moreno, as ever, thank you very much for your expertise. Good to see you.